Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today, where we'll be taking a deeper dive into the Viva Insights experience, looking at how data-driven insights can transform the employee experience. So, a little bit about today's webinar. It'll be about 30 minutes long, but if you need to leave early or miss parts of the presentation, we are recording the session and we'll send out a link using the email you registered with. So, you may have come across this webinar through a colleague or maybe one of our social channels. So, if that's the case, I'd like to encourage you to visit habaneroconsulting.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter, where we share information about events, webinars, and content you might be interested in. So there will also be a few polling questions today, so I'd appreciate your feedback, and I'll plan to share the answers along with the recording afterwards. So I think that's all from a housekeeping perspective, so let's jump right in. My name is Imran Thobani, and I'm a managing consultant here at Habanero, leading our workplace analytics offering, which is really an integral piece of the Viva Insights experience, as you'll see today. So I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta, and I've always been passionate and intrigued by the human experience at work, including understanding what are the characteristics or attributes of a great employee experience. And that passion and interest is really what led me to Habanero in the first place. So I'll be your guide for today, sharing more details about the Viva Insights experience and how we see it fitting into employee experience design. There's also some time set aside to highlight some important considerations around things like privacy and trust, followed by some ideas around how you might be able to get started with the Viva Insights experience today. So a little bit about Habanero. This idea of bringing life to work is really part of our DNA and sums up the work we do and how we orient ourselves around customer needs. And I think it's such an important time to focus on this idea as many of us continue to experience blurred lines between our personal and home lives. And to prove this point, I'm willing to bet that half of you, maybe even myself, are wearing sweatpants right now. But in all seriousness, these blurred lines are having a dramatic impact on employee experience. High performance is being masked by exhaustion, and we are all looking for ways to create a bit more balance in our lives. So we really see Viva Insights as one of the tools to help us get there. So as an organization, we seek to help other organizations create amazing employee experiences and do this by bringing our strengths in both the workplace culture and knowledge of the digital workplace together with a focus on the Microsoft technology stack where we've been a partner for over 20 years. And we've been recognized as a leading organization in this space, partially because of our unique balance of culture and technology. ALM Vanguard and Gartner especially have really called us out as leaders in this space, which we're quite sort of proud and honored by. And we're also considered a great place to work. And this is such an important aspect of how we think about helping other organizations, as we first want to make sure we're doing the hard work on ourselves. And this hard work is partially what led us to conduct some research on ourselves and the market as a whole, exploring how COVID has and continues to impact the employee experience. So I'm sure many of you have explored the various research and content out there, as we're all looking to try and make sense of what the employee experience looks like today and what it might look like in the future. So we wanted to explore these ideas as well and surface some fascinating insights. So I highly encourage you to go check out our website if you're curious to dig into our findings. But that's really a nice segue into this idea. With the world of work really going through a massive transformation over the past year and a half, with those changes likely accelerating as we roll through and hopefully out of this pandemic. About a year and a half ago, there was this once in a lifetime event that acted as a catalyst for a massive shift, with organizations scrambling to transform their businesses to enable things like remote work and ensure business continuity. And really what we saw was years of transformation taking place over several weeks. And while there have been many successes and benefits as a result of this rapid digital transformation, there are also some side effects or impacts that are being felt. So there's been this massive investment to enable remote work, but there's still an opportunity to support the change experience to help employees get the most out of these new productivity tools. I mentioned it already, but there's a blurring of lines between our personal and professional lives, meaning there's an opportunity to help employees achieve more balance through more intentional and thoughtful organizational norms. And we've really lost the ability to gain insight into people's experiences through water cooler chats or informal check-ins, meaning we're looking for much needed visibility into people's experiences with access to new data and analytics surfacing a tremendous opportunity to address these gaps. And if organizations don't act on these new challenges, there are some pretty monumental impacts. Microsoft recently published some of their own research in what's called their Work Trend Index, and it's a great example of the data and insight that's coming from the ground up, highlighting what employees want in the future. So the top two numbers really do sort of highlight the expectation folks have about the future experience, with 73% of employees wanting flexible work options to continue, and 36% of employees planning to move now that they can work remotely. And the market is really reacting to this change with a dramatic increase in remote job postings on places like LinkedIn, and 40% of employees across the globe considering leaving their employer this year. So there's a real opportunity to address these trends by leaning into new tools and capabilities that are emerging. And all of this is what led to Microsoft Viva, which is Microsoft's take on an employee experience platform, which includes four key pillars, all of which are focused on employee engagement. So while there are new tools and capabilities here, these pillars are also made up of existing tools and capabilities or products from the Microsoft ecosystem, and they've been rebranded under the Viva umbrella. And that includes Insights, which brings in capabilities from tools like My Analytics and Workplace Analytics, which we'll be talking about shortly. So we will be focusing today's session on the Insights pillar, but if you're interested in learning more about the rest of the Viva experience, you can check out our last webinar where we provide an overview of each pillar and share more about our perspective and experience around each area. So the idea behind Viva Insights is really to empower people, teams, and leaders with a new set of data and evidence, helping provide more visibility into working patterns and trends, and ultimately help design a more balanced experience to drive things like well-being and productivity. And there's a real need to address these issues, as there are some staggering numbers when we look at the impact burnout is having on people. 34% of employees are already feeling more burned out than 1 year ago, with 90% reporting a negative impact on their performance. And there's also evidence out there that highlights the impact burnout, exhaustion, and other forms of stress can have on productivity, meaning there is inherent value to employees and organizations to create a more balanced experience at work. And really, the whole point of Viva Insights is to tackle these challenges, providing visibility into how work is happening, while also delivering personalized and actionable insights that can act as valuable data and evidence to drive informed decision making. So these targeted insights will really help make sense of working patterns and trends and highlight impacts on things like well-being and productivity. The platform itself also allows for extensibility, connecting to other data sources to provide a more holistic picture of people's experiences at work by conducting a deeper analysis across the various tools employees and organizations might be using. So I've briefly mentioned this already, but Viva Insights is a newly branded experience that is the evolution of two existing concepts that exist today, which are complemented by a new set of well-being features Microsoft is introducing, all of which will surface in Teams. So the two existing concepts or products I'm referring to are My Analytics and Workplace Analytics. And how these tools work is they capture and aggregate everyday data that are sort of coming from sources like Microsoft Teams and Outlook to deliver a set of metrics, dashboards, and reports to help visualize data that's being captured. And this data is actually captured regardless of your use of these tools. But My Analytics and Workplace Analytics provide a more structured way to consume and digest the various data that's being collected and analyzed. So My Analytics is specifically targeted at individuals and delivers more personalized insights that are unique to each user and are actually only viewable or available to each individual. Workplace Analytics focuses more on teams and organizations, providing visibility into broad collaboration trends and behaviors. So these capabilities will be paired with a new set of well-being features and capabilities to complement the data and insight My Analytics and Workplace Analytics are able to produce. And all of this really ties together to form what is now known as Viva Insights. So I realize it's a lot of information to throw at you on one slide. So a simple way to think about this, or the whole Viva Insights experience and the different components that drive the experience, is that it aggregates everyday collaboration data in M365. It surfaces a variety of dashboards and visuals to make sense of collaboration trends and habits, and delivers targeted and actionable recommendations to drive positive change and enable things like employee well-being. So all of these targeted recommendations and the platform as a whole are really intended to serve three distinct audiences or personas. So something I do want to call out early on is there are some licensing considerations for these various experiences. So personal insights are generally available to all users at no cost, but the manager and leader insights, which are primarily driven by workplace analytics, do require a premium license. So something to keep in mind as we continue exploring the insights experience this morning. When we look at the personal insights experience, the idea is to deliver individual insights to help employees understand how they are working, as well as explore actionable changes or recommendations to evolve meeting practices to help create more balance at work. So there are components of this feature available today, including things like a weekly digest email and those targeted recommendations I just mentioned. But the insights experience will evolve over time and aims to level up this personal view with some exciting new features coming this year. So while only a handful of these features are available today, this gives you an idea of what to expect, and we're sort of anticipating a summer release for a lot of these features. On top of the ability to book focus time or make sense of your network and to-do list, Viva Insights aims to create a more mindful and intentional experience for employees through things like guided meditation and a virtual commute, which studies have shown can help our brains disconnect and allow us to be our best selves. There's also going to be a set of features to help folks reflect on their day and carve out time for valuable activities like coaching and personal development. So we continue to learn more and more about what this experience will look like as Microsoft continues to announce new updates and features, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what to expect. For the sake of today's session though, we're gonna focus more on the manager and leader experiences, all of which are actually available today. So starting with manager insights, the idea is to provide visibility into working patterns across teams, helping managers understand team norms or trends that impact things like burnout or stress. And the idea is to also highlight potential actions that can be taken to better support and enable those same team members. So here's an example of what managers or team leads might see, with Viva Insights servicing a variety of dashboards and metrics, which are based on common use cases or business goals that have come up. And these pre-baked dashboards and views are all available out of the box, but they do require a heavy lift behind the scenes from an onboarding and configuration perspective. So to produce these views, Viva Insights, specifically workplace analytics, needs to ingest a variety of organizational data, which includes several mandatory fields or attributes. And workplace analytics also needs to be configured in a way that aligns with each unique business to ensure the reports and metrics being produced here accurately represent an employee base. So there's a ton of documentation out there from Microsoft, but we've also been working on our own onboarding guide with lessons learned from our experiences. So feel free to reach out if you're in the process of evaluating insights, and we can dig into some of the onboarding tips and steps to ensure you're really set up for success. What's great about this experience though is once these onboarding steps are complete, there's some really helpful dashboards Insights produces, including gaining visibility into how teams are doing, for example, and if there are areas that might be worth investigating further. So one area that we continue to hear more and more about is connected to this idea of predicting and managing employee burnout. So I've mentioned this earlier, the impacts burnout, stress, and exhaustion can have on well-being and productivity. So it's a very relevant topic you can investigate in Viva Insights today. So this example really highlights a team that is at risk of burnout as a result of longer work weeks, as well as an increase in time spent collaborating after hours and on weekends. It is important to remember, though, that there's an opportunity to complement this data with other forms of research and evidence, like interviews, workshops, or surveys, really to validate what the data is telling us. But Viva Insights is also providing a helpful starting point and services actionable recommendations to address this area if it really is a concern. And these types of recommendations will pop up for each topic and are all about turning insights into action. And the idea is to highlight areas leaders can get started on with recommendations that are founded on world-class research from platforms like Harvard Business Review, as well as Microsoft's own research lab, which is producing some fascinating studies and reports. So as we shift gears and focus more on the leader experience, you'll start to see similar dashboards and views, this time spanning across an entire organization. And the goal here is to create more visibility into broad working patterns and trends and really make sense of how the organization is functioning as a whole. So as we look at this as we look at this experience, leaders will gain insight and visibility into those broad sort of norms and trends I mentioned, with this out-of-the-box dashboard providing a ton of insight into various themes, including how to drive things like engagement, improve agility, or just make sense of the overall meeting culture within an organization. So this is just one of the many baked dashboards that are available in Viva, with dozens of others available out of the box. And all of this is complemented by the ability to run more custom queries and reports based on specific areas or opportunities leaders might be trying to investigate or address. So another common use case we frequently hear about is trying to make sense of the change in collaboration that happens as a result of big changes or interventions. And that includes the shift to remote work that happened last year, and more specifically, the impact all of this is having on people. So as a leader in the insights experience, there's already a baked view that provides this visibility. So in this example, Insights shows us there was a 20% increase in overall collaboration when the organization shifted to remote work in February of last year. And these reports are all dynamic in Teams, but are also accessible in Power BI with the ability to drill deeper and slice and dice the data to focus on things like certain time periods of the year or gain much needed visibility into how specific teams or roles were impacted. So I've hinted at this idea already, but the accuracy of this data is really dependent on the cleanliness of your organization's information and ensuring you've set up the tool in a way that really reflects your unique business. So it's important to start making sense of these activities and even think about organizing your Azure Active Directory or HRIS platform, as these are the most common tools used to feed Viva Insights the information it needs to really function. And while these are not all easy or straightforward activities, doing this will unlock a set of insights that can be paired with other qualitative research activities, which in turn will help your organization take a data and evidence-based approach around designing employee experiences. So, at Habanero, we really see Viva Insights as another opportunity or tool to make sense of people's experiences, but appreciate it's a new and emerging space. So I want to pose a question to the audience and ask, what employee insight tools has your organization been leveraging? So you should see a few answers pop up, including leveraging surveys or other forms of qualitative research, like surveys or interviews, or maybe a robust people analytics program. So I'd love to hear from each of you, and I'll give you a few moments to answer before we continue. Okay, thanks so much to those of you who answered. I do want to shift gears a bit and talk about some important considerations if you're thinking about leveraging the insights experience. And one of the most important considerations to keep in mind when exploring Viva Insights or really any people analytics tool ties to this idea of employee privacy. So this is something so critical as any insight, value, or benefit that might emerge from the use of these tools is worth very little if trust is broken. And I love this quote, as trust really does need to be a core building block for any highly productive and engaged organization, and leaders really need to set the tone for this. The good news is Viva Insights has several safeguards in place from a privacy and trust perspective. So Microsoft is already a leader in compliance and security with several privacy safeguards in place across the M365 suite of tools, and has actually structured insights in a way that allows organizations and analysts to go beyond those existing safeguards by doing things like limiting scope or building in exclusions and exceptions. So Insights is really constructed in a way that ensures all employee information is immediately de-identified when processed, with all data being aggregated, meaning it's impossible to pinpoint individual information. Things like bodies or content of emails can't be accessed as well, and there's actually a minimum group size of 5 required for any measurement to be produced, meaning a team of less than 5 wouldn't actually show up in the reports. And privacy legislation is also a top priority, with Viva Insights compliant with leading legislation out there like GDPR. And while it's comforting to know the tool itself has these safeguards in place, we also recommend thinking about overarching ethical considerations or even guiding principles, as this is likely new territory for many organizations. And this is by no means a summary of how you should approach this topic, but I did want to include some initial ideas to really help you get started. So things like working openly and transparently, including being clear about the intent and use of analytics, is something we see as essential to maintain trust and transparency. So while data is not recognizable, it's still important to treat it with respect and care. And it's also critical to consult the organization and employees to ensure you're aligning your strategy with their needs. And that ties to this idea of bringing people along for the journey, which will ultimately allow your organization to embrace this idea of analytics and data, really helping inform employee experience design. There's really so much we could explore around this idea, but hopefully this acts as a helpful starting point when thinking about the ethical commitment you want to make. So another consideration to be mindful of is thinking about the tools and techniques you want to pair Viva Insights with. I've talked about this a couple times already, but what we're after here, what everyone is really after, is we all want to make decisions based on great evidence. So we are big believers in complementing the inherent possibilities Viva Insights presents with other tools and techniques, leveraging this idea of a mixed method research approach. And one way to look at this idea is combining quantitative and qualitative research. So research tools can span across quantitative techniques to get a lot of breadth quickly, like a survey, as well as qualitative research, which really allows you to go deeper and uncover insights you may not have known existed. So we've elevated our thinking around this idea as well, and have created a model I wanted to share. So not only is there a spectrum of qualitative and quantitative research, but research tools can also span between starting with a hypothesis to more observational techniques to gain more insight into people's objective experiences. So we think it's critical to leverage a mixture of these approaches really to support, challenge, and complement Viva Insights, ultimately to understand people's lived experiences and chart a path forward in this new world of work. So before I highlight some practical ways to get started with Viva Insights, I do want to share some quick considerations and tips based on our experiences leveraging the platform. So if you haven't done so already, you should look at enabling My Analytics, which is something every organization has access to, as long as you've made the move to Exchange Online. And while My Analytics comes at no additional cost, there are some premium licensing considerations to be mindful of if you're eager to leverage the manager and leader insights I showcased earlier, again, all of which are driven by workplace analytics. And if you haven't made an intentional decision to move forward with Viva Insights, you should still start by building a cross-functional team across various parts of your business, as analytics often impacts groups like communications, culture, or HR, as well as IT. And on a similar thread, you'll want to start navigating privacy considerations or processes, which can often be a time-consuming activity. And it's not because there might be red flags or issues to navigate, it's more so because it will take time to help your organization make sense of the product and the tool itself. But as you navigate these conversations, it likely makes sense to start organizing and sort of collecting your organizational data, as this can be another time-consuming process. But if you've made the leap to bring Viva Insights in-house, you'll want to ensure the tool is configured in a way that aligns with your unique business and potentially aligns with a targeted goal or analysis you have in mind. And I actually really suggest or highly recommend starting with a targeted analysis, focusing on a tangible business goal or problem, as it can be easy to go fishing, meaning you're combing through massive amounts of data without an end goal or objective in mind. So that's not a very, overly helpful activity. So what I suggest is once you have a targeted business goal in mind, you can then pair other research and tools with the data Viva Insights is producing, with this powerful combination providing a more holistic picture of people's experiences. And that will allow you to take an evidence-based approach to designing a great employee experience for your organization. So if you're keen to get started, the good news is there's a lot of features you can begin exploring today. I've mentioned it already, but the quickest way to get started is by installing the Insights app in Teams, which you should have access to if your organization is leveraging Exchange Online and has enabled My Analytics. So this can be done by searching the Teams app catalog and just by following the prompts in the experience there. And right away, you should start to gain access to the personal insights that are actually available and have been released today. If you're keen to explore manager and leader insights, but are looking for a bit more education or need to build alignment among stakeholders, We've also worked with Microsoft to design a funded workshop that opens up a conversation about Viva Insights and how it might be able to enable your business goals and priorities. So we start all of this with a Viva Insights overview and demo with key stakeholders, really to educate folks about the tool itself. We'll then quickly shift gears to explore the art of the possible, highlighting use cases and examples of where the product has been leveraged, as well as facilitate a divergent thinking exercise to envision a future employee experience with data, analytics, and measurement at its core. And following that, we'll want to make sure that we can sort of turn this idea into something more practical and helpful. So we'll dig into a prioritization and enablement session where we'll explore tangible business goals and priorities Viva Insights might be able to support, and then lead you through a prioritization exercise to really explore actionable ways to get started. And all of this is capped really by a conversation around next steps, which highlights what comes next. And that might include building a business case or even operationalizing Viva Insights within your organization. So something to keep in mind about these workshops is that funding for these types of sessions tends to dry up as we get closer to Microsoft's fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. So keep that in mind if you're keen to explore this option. And that leads us to another question I have before we wrap up our session this morning, where I'd love to learn more about what you think are the best next steps in your insights journey. So you should see a few questions or a few options pop up. So I'll give you a few moments to answer. So thanks again for participating. And that's really all I have for you today. But I want to say thanks again for attending. And please feel free to reach out if you want to grab a virtual coffee or have any questions about anything I've shared today. So thanks so much. Take care and stay safe.